What's happening, family? Hope everybody is doing well tonight. Thank you for joining me. Uh, just want to say a few things before I get started. Hope everybody can join us on Thursdays as we chop it up with some brothers. We've been reading Audrey Lorde and going through some things with that. And so we hope that you can join us on Thursdays at 5 as we chop it up with that process, reading her text with a few of the brothers. And we'll be finished with that book soon. So thank you for joining us on that, and look forward to our next reading. Not sure what that's going to be yet, but we look forward to that. But today we're going to chop up John 10 for a little bit. And so if you have your Bibles, man, just take a moment and get it. But we're going to start with John 10. Hope your day was good. Won't be here long. Give me a couple of minutes and we'll move on. John 10, starting at the first verse. And it reads, truly, truly, I say to you, and I'm reading out the ESV. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him, the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice, and a stranger they will not follow. But they will flee him, but they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So Jesus again said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep do not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he shall be saved and will go in and out and find pastures. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. The wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees them, and he is hired and cares nothing for them. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as God knows me, I know God. I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this fold. And we'll skip over to the back part of 17. I lay down my life. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down. And that's John 10:1. What's up, JD? You can be in there too. I'll put you in there next week. No doubt. No doubt. So John 10, verse 1. And this title is you will catch it later. The power of the Jegna. Now, my maternal grandfather. Well, let me say a little prayer first. God, we thank you for this time, sharing this word. May it be used for empowerment, encouragement to your people, that they may stand in the face of adversity. It's in the name of the Messiah we pray. Amen. My grandfather was a brick mason. And not only was he a brick mason, but he was a well-known brick mason in the city of Casey, South Carolina. That's like a bedroom of Columbia and much of the surrounding area. But in Casey, it was not unusual for my grandfather to hire men who were between jobs, looking for work, or young brothers who simply didn't know what to do and had no clue. My grandfather would take them with him to job sites and teach them the art of brick masonry. As his grandsons got older, he did his best to pass that knowledge down to them. It started with my older cousin, Kelly. He was the first to be indoctrinated into the fraternity of the mortar. Then came my turn. It was during those 2 long days that I worked with him that I had a life-altering moment. This thought continually replayed in my mind. This is not what I want to do the rest of my life. See, I saw how tired Kelly was when he would finish working with my grandfather, Bill Bowman, that was his name. I saw he was happy to get home, and I saw he was ready to get home to his house after the summer. Because of those 2 days, I felt like I had built an entire subdivision by myself working with my grandfather. But there was one particular thing that my grandfather said that stuck with me until this very day. While performing my duties as a runner, which simply meant, I would get bricks, stack them so that they could continue doing their brick masonry work. My grandfather said, I don't have time to teach you. You have to learn on the fly, but you will catch it later. And I thought he was just simply talking about brick masonry. Well, in our story, yeah, I see Coach Boyd. Well, in our story, Jesus, the Messiah, has just offered free health care to a blind man, and the self-righteous Republicans, I meant the Pharisees, are having a tantrum. They are angry because their outdated boomer idea, the Sabbath, has been broken. Now this new emerging leader, the Messiah, who actually cares for the people, is inscribing a new understanding of commitment to something that is traditionally cohesive to the Pharisaic vibe. It is similar to church refusing to adjust to COVID restrictions for safety and well-being of their people by continuing with unsafe face-to-face services versus streaming services, recording sermons, or at least telephonic gatherings. The Pharisees are more concerned about traditions compared to protecting and helping the people. Jesus, the Messiah, begins to move into this role as the leader, the Jegna. Now, the Jegna, as Dr. Wayne Noble states, is an Ethiopian word that means a very brave person who is a protector of a culture, the rights of his or her people and their land. More than a leader, a Jegna is someone who is not afraid to speak truth to power, is uncompromised, full of integrity, and at the very core of his or her being sees the welfare and protection of their people as paramount. They are literally open to die for the community they represent. The Jegna are those people who have been tested in struggle or battle, demonstrated extraordinary and unusual fearlessness, show determination and courage in protecting his or her people, land, and culture, show diligence and dedication to our people, produce exceptionally high quality work, and dedicated themselves to the protection, defense, and development of people, place, and culture. We find the Messiah in John 10 becoming the Jegna. As he starts, he says, you better peep out what I'm about to lay down because these clowns are coming for you and have been here. He says that a person that came in by the door or that can't come in by the door is a thief and a robber. So back in my day when I was at Benedict College, that great HBCU in Columbia, South Carolina, we used to call this faking jacks, which simply means you are a fraud. And here is the Messiah as the Jegna saying that the person or persons who are really not concerned about the well-being of the people, because first of all, they do not even approach you the right way. Let's be clear, it is culturally appropriate. To be culturally appropriate is always a must. I grew up in Lexington and lived in so many places from Augusta to Chicago. And one thing I realized is that especially in Chicago, you don't really understand how the city vibes in a car when you live in Chicago. I mean, yeah, in Chicago, you have to actually get out. So I used to live on the south side of Chicago, and it was while I was walking around the city that I realized there's a particular way that you have to move in that city to really understand how it vibes. And I learned, and I love living in Chicago until the winter came. Y'all know how that goes. The Messiah makes a point to signify that the door has a meaning of liberation and justice, because he is very clear that it is a way that he walked in the space to begin with. Therefore, one does not come through the space the same. Therefore, if one does not come through the space through the same process, they are suspect. So, Kelly Loeffler, you are not elected by the people. You were selected by the governor, a governor who won a rigged election while holding his seat as the Secretary of State of Georgia, never relinquishing his position, which unequivocally produced a prejudice in the processes during the election, therefore affording him the luxury to select Loeffler as a senator only because Stacey Abrams was not rightly afforded the opportunity to win the governor's race. Oh, but when the people speak, because when the Jegna or the Messiah, or in this case, Stacey Abrams, go out, the people follow. So when the real race was on and popping, we saw what happened. Abram leads an organizational push that galvanizes 800,000 new voters, that gets Warnock and Ossoff elected and gets rid of the thief and the robber. In the scripture, the Messiah is making this point that when the shepherd speaks to the sheep, and in this case, the Jegna speaks to the people know him or her because they are one of them and not an outsider. Though it appears that Jesus is making some inroads in his presentation, he realizes that they were not picking up what he was putting down. He then reemphasizes the importance of the door and why it is important for leaders and others to have this type of hood credibility, where folks trust what you are saying without thinking that you're getting ready to sham them. Understand one thing that Jegna is keen about is how people are culturally connected and represented, because the Jegna is willing, to die for the people without a second thought, because they live in the sanctity of the community. Because it was not simply about the redemption of one, but the liberation of all. So when the Messiah says, I came that they might have life and have it more abundantly, he was clearly emphasizing that this is not an individual endeavor, but a communal structuring. This reminds me of what Albert Clegg writes in Salvation, a group experience. He says, individuals can't carry on a revolution. Individuals can become angry and strike out in frustration, but this is not a revolution. Only people who struggle together can carry on a revolution. The Messiah, this Jegna, is cognizant of the fact that these people are hearing things that will register with them later. But now he continues to do his work and teach. He continues to deconstruct the meanings of hirelings and shepherds, or in our contemporary settings, pastors and jacklegs. The latter are only lead for the limelight and the pseudo prestige of preaching. But what happens when it's time to preach a funeral and do pastoral care? I remember being at Vanderbilt University's Public Theology Institute one summer, and Dr. Tracy Blackman was giving a presentation, and she comes in and she sits beside me and she introduces herself. I'm Tracy Blackman, and I'm like, yeah, of course, we know who you are. That's why we're here. But she was just nice and such a gracious person. But she begins to tell the story of how she became the Tracy Blackman that we all know. And you can go on YouTube and probably hear her story or find it somewhere online, how she says she wasn't trying to become famous. She was just doing the work. She was trying to protect the community. All she was doing was trying to provide pastoral care for the people who knew Mike, those in the community of Ferguson. So when you are doing the work of a Jegna, prestige is the furthest thing from your mind. You are simply trying to protect the community. Therefore, when verse 12 says the hireling sees the wolf and runs instead of protecting the fold, or in our case, protecting the community, we get a pronounced understanding of the Jegna. The wolf is representative of the Pharisees. The Pharisees had a religious expectation and religious intentions, but they did not have a love for the people. They governed by strict standards of the law and the scriptures, yet failed to comprehend the simple needs like healing. Therefore, they cringed at the Messiah extending free health care to those in need because they deemed it more important to maintain the Sabbath. This urges me to consider what James Baldwin meant when he wrote, "The body becomes a malevolently unpredictable enemy, appallingly visible." When Baldwin is interjecting, what Baldwin is interjecting is this superficial standards that are out of rhythm with the wellness of people, falsely projecting help, are actually sin, thus unjust. Let me read that again. What Baldwin is interjecting is that superficial standards that are out of rhythm with the wellness of the people, falsely projecting help, are actually sin, thus unjust. So the appalling body, or in these yet to be United States, black and brown bodies, are castigated because it does not fit into the cultural categories of humanity that never had us in mind to begin with. This is the problem that the Messiah, Jesus, is pressing in the face of the Pharisees, the appallingly visible bodies of those in need. This is the problem facing us today, the appalling visible bodies of people trying to recreate ourselves into the divine beauty, or as Baldwin declares, create ourselves into human beings. What we find is that the liberation and the redemption what we find in the liberation and the redemption is in the fact that the Jegna, the Messiah whom you call Jesus, is known by his own and willing to lay down his life for them. The shepherd in Jesus' story is willing to die for the protection of his sheepfold, even when evil presents itself. The Messiah is telling and retelling the people that I am that guy that is willing to lay down my life. But you will get this later. Because right now, white supremacy, fame, pain, grief, finances have you too enthralled with getting likes and reposts. Your bills have you stressed out. Right now, scholarships didn't go your way, so you don't have money. And unemployment benefits have run out. So you will get this later because right now, you just can't get it. And you can't figure out, as Jesus says, you don't understand my figure of speech. So you will get this later. But understand, the Jegna is always in teaching mode. See, what my cousins and I didn't understand with my grandfather was that not only was he teaching us a trade, he was teaching us something else. You see, little did we know that at the time that old man was preparing us for manhood in a strange way that was unsettling. Though none of us became brick masons, all of us graduated from college. It was as if he made a decision from our birth that he would teach us a valuable lesson, which was, I may not know what you want to do, but I can teach you what you don't want to do. Because I remember saying to my mother and to my friends, man, I'm graduating from college, so I don't have to work like I worked with my grandfather. Though we don't do the work of a brick mason, we have the thought process of a brick mason because all of us are constantly building. There is something we learned from my grandfather working those summers, building those houses. We didn't get it then, but we got it later. And this is what the Messiah was teaching as he was navigating through his short ministry before his execution. The Jegna, the Messiah, Jesus, was preparing them for a lesson that they would not catch until a future date when the empire took him out. I'm out of here. Remember to survive, cultivate joy, resist, and stay joke. Peace.